Hello everybody and welcome to our first ever episode of Maple Live. I'm Kish, I'm a resident here at Maple.
I'm Ryu, I'm also a resident here at Maple.
And this past week we just wrapped up our first ever Circling and Emotions retreat, which was just an incredible experience. And now we're going to play a short clip from Ryushin's opening talk for that retreat.
One way of looking at it is that ethics, the emotions we feel, our emotional response to the world, indicate a kind of implicit moral ordering of things. They reveal what we think or believe is valuable, our values, what is meaningful, even what is sacred to us. And there's a kind of wisdom located in them that we can learn to live in accordance with. So when I'm angry, I have a sense, if you can check, if you get angry, I hope you get angry this week, you have a sense that there is something valuable that needs protecting. It's a movement of the being to protect that which is worth loving. If I feel sad, it's because I sense that something worth loving is in danger of being lost. And if I feel ashamed skillfully, it's because I have a sense that I'm not living up to my integrity. And it's worth learning to experience the ethical dimension of emotions. And so as we heal, as we clarify our aspiration, what's worth loving, emotions can become guides to ethical living.
I wish we also had a clip of me getting angry during the retreat to show at this time, but unfortunately we don't. I can just say from my personal experience that having this framing of emotions as pointing to things that I really care about and value was really helpful for me during this retreat. And I'm wondering if you have any tips for people watching this at home on how to integrate this or explore this relationship between emotions and ethics in their personal lives.
Totally, yeah. So a couple things come to mind. The first is to really hold this framing. Most people actually just don't relate to their emotions at all, as if they're indicating some kind of ethical intelligence. And so just to presence that frame as you interact with your emotions, as you kind of explore or relate to your emotions, does a tremendous amount of work, right? So just bringing that frame forward is huge, actually. And so next time that you do get angry, and it doesn't even have to be necessarily in the moment that you're angry. It might be subsequently if you're, say, journaling or processing with a friend, you can kind of just inquire, like, what was I really caring about that I was, my being was standing up to protect? And just so with other emotions, you kind of start to just wonder about the ethical intelligence in your emotional experience. And that just starts to open up a whole territory of really interesting revelations and clarity. And so that's the most important thing, is just to hold that frame. The other way in that I've explored a lot in circling and relational practices, and also just looking out at the world, is seeing how values are at play in conflict. So it's the case that when there is conflict, there's usually two different agents who are standing up for values that, for whatever reason, they think are in conflict. Yeah, and so often we get kind of sucked into the argumentation and like the layers on top of those values. But if we can kind of peer through that and look at the underlying values, it can actually simplify conflict a lot. We can say, oh, you're caring about this, you're caring about this. And then we can even wonder, like, is there a way that we can actually get both of those values met in this instance? And so there's this kind of art of like looking underneath the fireworks of conflict into the underlying values. And once we do that, a lot can open up in terms of how we move in conflicts, how we resolve conflicts, and amazingly, this can apply like with yourself and somebody else. It can apply like if your friends or colleagues are fighting, but it can also apply in your own psychology. So if you have an inner conflict, you can start to look at like, what are these two parts of myself caring about, and how can I help them see each other more clearly? And that can create a lot of growth.
Thank you. For myself personally, I found that it can be difficult to look and actually see what's happening for myself, whether that be emotions or other kinds of responses, if I'm feeling really activated. And I'm wondering if you have any tips for how to start finding that equanimity.
Yeah. So often we will get like more activated than is kind of necessary or appropriate if there's something like what people refer to as trauma, like kind of unfelt feelings from the past. That will tend to like increase or amplify the emotional response. And often if it gets amplified enough, that will make it very hard to kind of be curious about our experience. And so in those moments of real trigger, you kind of got to just like do whatever you can to ride your way through that without creating harm and taking care of yourself. And then subsequently, if you want, you can then kind of reflect back on it, figure out like, well, what of this was actually a kind of like over amplification due to unfelt things from the past, and what was I actually really caring about that maybe is something I want to live according to. And you can do that in journaling, you can do that when you're processing with a friend, you can do that as you're meditating and just kind of reflecting on your day or your week or whatever. And you can really take that time to deepen into reflecting on that experience and sort of digesting it and taking it apart into those components. Yeah.
And would you say that that's a time where you could use some skillful shame?
Totally. Yeah. And this is a practice that a lot of us do here at the Monastic Academy. Sometimes it's called mindful review, where you look back at your day and kind of like see, like look, kind of settle into observing and remembering what happened. And what I've found when I do that practice is that there are certain moments or interactions with people that when I go back to, there's a kind of like shame response in my body. And, you know, that's a really critical moment where if we haven't trained, we might tip over into, oh, and therefore I'm a bad person, something like that. But if instead of doing that, you say, oh, okay, there's an opportunity to become more skillful here. This shame, this remorse indicates some new way of being in the world that I can be proud of. And so you take that time to kind of reflect, feel the shame, and let it indicate to you, invite you into that new way of being, that new way of understanding how you show up, that new way of being with other people. That is just a wonderful practice. But again, you need to be really careful not to tip over into this kind of toxic, self-harming, self-abusive shame when you're doing that. That's very common in our culture right now. So you gotta like kind of guard against that.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Ryushin, and for the wisdom that you've shared with us today and during the retreat. So to give an update on the things happening here at Maple, our second Zendo is under construction. It's still in the very early phases. Last week we finished holding our first ever circling and emotions retreat. We then had a 2-day awakening weekend where apprentices, residents, and guests focused on meditation and also grounds work. I personally helped clean our organizational vehicles. And lastly, some parents came to visit, and yesterday during our self-practice day or free day, we had a dance party.
Steven, can you demonstrate your practice in 10 seconds or less?
Yes.
Thank you.
Then I log into more.
Dan, demonstrate your practice. Thank you. Maitri, demonstrate your practice. Thank you. Joe, demonstrate your practice. Thank you.
To go over some of the pictures that we've taken here last week. This first one is of currency, pun intended. These are cute little heart gems that we put in each other's bowls or put in the community bowl to show that we've had a loving thought about a fellow community member. And it's really, really special and heartwarming to receive one from my personal experience. We also received a new drum recently donated by our current monastic villager and past resident and loved community member Autumn. Her mother donated this beautiful drum to us, and this is a photo of the first day that we used it during our evening chant. This is our former residential member Greg. He left with other residential member Jake this past Sunday. The residential membership program is a great way for people looking to maybe incorporate some elements of the monastic lifestyle, for instance, more meditation, chanting, kind of this structure, and be in this amazing community while also maintaining your own work, business, side project. Is a way that you can co-work with us and also reap some of the benefits of this monastic lifestyle. And this last photo is of Sophia Jean and Mitra. Mitra is our executive director. Sophia Jean was a former resident here at Maple, and they were two of the facilitators for the Circling and Emotions retreat that happened last week. And this photo is them giving some context for the all-day surrendered leadership circle that we had on our second to last day. For those who have done surrendered leadership circles before, you know that this on all-day one is an intense experience. So this is kind of the calm before the storm. For some of the upcoming events happening that you can get involved in, we're having a mobile monastery Chautauqua tour, which will be led by Autumn, who I mentioned earlier, and also our past resident Pan. And this is a way that you can kind of get involved with us and some of the practices that we do here in your town or a town near you. So the event that is upcoming is on August 8th, and it will be led by Pan. It will be an embodiment workshop. We'll also learn about meditation and art, and it's in Detroit. So if you're near the area, should be a lot of fun. Please check it out. And secondly, we're having two vision quests. One, let me check the dates. One is August 21st to 29th, and the second is September 10th to 19th. And those will be led by Darren Silver and held here on the premises in Lowell, Vermont. A vision quest is an opportunity to connect deeply with nature, and really the nature here is so beautiful. And also it's a time that you can ask the world, the spirits, yourself, your guides, the question of what is my purpose, what is my vow, and to gain some clarity on that. And that's all for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Sending you all love and compassion and peace, and hope to see you next time.